Buddha and the Kingdom of Truth. One day in this year 2 BC, in his imperial palace at Chang'an, the Emperor of China, Son of Heaven, robed in yellow, and seated upon his red dragon throne, received an ambassador, a Tartar, who kowtowed before him. Then, having most humbly touched his forehead to the floor 9 times, the ambassador rose and presented his celestial highness with the 3 baskets of wisdom. These so-called baskets of wisdom, the emperor need not be told, were the sacred books of Buddhism, the religion which has grown out of the teaching of one Gautama the Buddha, who had lived in India, when Lao Tzu and Confucius had lived in China. 500 years had gone by then. 250 years ago, Ascota, an Indian ruler who was follower of Buddha, had sent missionaries out to all the known world, and some of them must have reached China. But it was not until about 67 AD when Nero, the great-great-grandson of Augustus, was emperor in Rome, that Buddhism, which was to become the 3rd great religion of China, would be accepted officially by the Chinese emperor. Then, according to a legend, Ming Tai, or Emperor Ming, was to have a dream in which he saw the image of a foreign god being carried into a palace. An embassy would then be sent by him to secure images, books, teachers, and a Buddhist priest from India to translate the Buddhist Gospels into Chinese. Fu or Fo is the Chinese word for Buddha. This is the story of Buddha and some words from his pure and beautiful teaching taken from these baskets of wisdom, now being presented for the first time to the Emperor of China. There was once a Raja in India, strong of purpose and reverenced by all men, a descendant of those called Gautama. His wife was beautiful as the white lily and pure in mind as the lotus, and immaculate, and the spirit of truth, glorious and strong as the white elephant, descended upon her. When she knew that the hour of motherhood was near, her attendants hung a curtain about her and retired. 4 pure-minded angels of the great Brahma held out a golden net to receive the babe, who came forth from her right side like the rising sun, bright and beautiful. All the world was flooded with light, whilst heavenly music rang through the air, and the angels rejoiced. Now there was at the time in a grove nearby a Brahma leading a life of a hermit, and the king invited him to see the royal babe, as the seer beholding the prince of Gautama said, "Like the moon when full, thou shouldst feel great joy, O king, for this son of thine will rule the world. He will either be a king of every land, or he will become a Buddha, an enlightened one." And as the light of the moon increased little by little, so the royal child grew from day to day in mind and in body, and truthfulness and love resided in his heart. When the prince had grown to youth, his father desired to see him married. Then Gautama chose his cousin, a gentle princess, as his wife. The prince attended to his religious duties, bathing his body in the holy Ganges and cleansing his heart in the waters of the law. The palace which the king had given the prince was resplendent with all the luxuries of India. All sorrowful sights and knowledge of misery were kept away from him, for the king desired that his son be happy and not know that which was evil in the world. But as the chained elephant longs for the wilds of the jungle, the prince was eager to see the world. So the king, his father, ordered a jewel-founted chariot with 4 stately horses to be held ready. And the prince rode with his charioteer through the city and into the country. By the wayside they met an old man with a bent frame, wrinkled face, and sorrowful brow. And the prince asked him, "Who is this?" The charioteer said, "This is a man in old age." And lo, while they were passing on, a sick man appeared on the wayside, gasping for breath and groaning with pain. And the prince asked, "What kind of man is this?" The charioteer told him, and then sped the horses to escape the sight which suddenly they were stopped. 4 persons passed by carrying a corpse. The prince shuddered. "What is this they carry?" The charioteer answered, "A dead man." Observing the deep impression the sad sights had made on the prince, he turned his horses and drove back to the city. Having returned home, the prince looked with disdain upon the treasures of his palace. "Alas," he cried, "my heart is heavy. All the world is filled with darkness, and no one knows how to cure the ills of life." It was night. The prince found no rest on his soft pillow. He arose and went into the garden. He sat down beneath the great jamba tree. Pondering on life and death, his mind became clear, and perfect peace came over him. He said to himself, "I will sever all ties that bind me to the world, and I will seek the way of truth. Verily, I say, I shall become a Buddha." The prince returned to the bedroom of his wife to take a last farewell of those whom he dearly loved, his beautiful wife and his beloved son. Then he rode out into the silent night. Gautama gave up his kingdom, severed all ties, and went into homelessness. He cut his wavy hair, exchanged his royal robe for a mean dress, the color of the ground, and walked along the high road with a beggar's bowl in his hand. Now he was a Bodhisattva, one who is seeking to become a Buddha. Now there was among the Brahmas 2 who were especially renowned as teachers of philosophy. The Buddha went to them and sat at their feet. He listened to their doctrines of the Brahma self, and being the eye of the mind and the doer of all things, he learned of the law of karma, how souls of bad men had to suffer by being reborn in men of low caste or animals, while these who purified themselves would become Brahmas or kings and rise higher and higher. But he was not satisfied. There was too much of selfishness in their teaching. The Bodhisattva then went to priests officiating in the temple, but his gentle mind was offended at the unnecessary cruelty performed on the altars of the gods, and he thought, "How can they slaughter an innocent victim, blot out the evil of deeds of mankind? Purify your hearts and to cease to kill. That is true religion. To abandon enviousness, to bring hatred and ill will, that is the right sacrifice and the true worship." So the Buddha went in search of a better system and came to settlement of 5 monks and joined their company. With holy zeal and a strong heart, he continued for 6 years, torturing himself till at last he ate each day 1 hemp seed only, saying, "Let the flesh waste away, if only the mind becomes clear." However, seeking true wisdom, he did not find it. He left the monks and wandered away alone. He then directed his steps to the blessed banya tree, beneath whose shade he was to end his search. There he gave himself up to meditation. Pondering on the origin of birth and death, he saw the truth. The perfect peace can dwell only where all vanity and thought of self has disappeared. Gifts are great, meditation and understanding, but greater than all is the loving kindness. Blessed is he who has conquered all selfishness and pride. He has reached Nirvana. He has become the Buddha, the perfect one. And now he thought, I have obtained Nirvana. Now I desire to give light to those who are in darkness and to find the kingdom of truth upon the earth. So the blessed one set out, the wheel of truth rolling, saying, the spokes of the wheel are the rules of pure conduct, justice in the equalness of their length, wisdom in the tire, modesty and loving kindness are the hub in which the axle of truth is fixed. To the Buddha, the spoke of caste, who is the outcast, who is the Brahman. An outcast is the one who is angry and bears hatred, who does not fear to commit wrong. He is whom there is truth and righteousness. He is a Brahma. Now, by his family or by birth does one become an outcast or a Brahma, but by deeds. Our good and evil deeds follow us continually like shadows. It is impossible to escape the result of our deeds. Let us then guard our thoughts that we do no evil, for as we sow, so shall we reap. That which is most needed is a loving heart. To the monks he said, neither abstinence from fish nor shaving the head will cleanse a man's heart, whose heart is not pure. To keep the body in good health is a duty, for otherwise we shall not be able to trim the lamp of wisdom and keep our minds strong and clear. And to all men, whatever they do, whether they are merchants, priests, or officers of the king, let them put their whole heart into their task. And if they can struggle in life without cherishing any envy or hatred, if they can live in the world not a life of self, but a life of truth, then surely joy, peace, and bliss will dwell in their hearts. And those who heard him gladly said, truly, the Buddha, our Lord, has set the wheel of truth rolling, which by no one in the universe can ever be turned back. The kingdom of truth will spread. Righteousness, goodwill, and peace will reign among mankind.